In our unit, we've discussed culture and geography, and now we're ready to focus on the culture of the early Native Americans who lived in North America. We're going to look at where they lived and how their environment affected the way they lived. A common question that people may ask is, how did the Native Americans get here? The most common belief is that the first Native Americans may have been hunters from Asia. The hunters probably followed the herds of animals that they were hunting until they eventually moved into North America. Scientists believe that thousands of years ago, there was a land bridge that allowed the hunters to cross from Asia into North America. In the map on this slide, you can see a red arrow that shows where this land bridge would have been located. Once they were in North America, some people would settle in a location, while others in the group would continue moving on to other areas. Over time, Native Americans settled in the various geographical regions, which included Arctic regions, desert areas, the plains, mountains, forests, and even along the ocean coast. The various groups or tribes developed different ways of living depending on the region in which they lived. The Native Americans who settled in the Arctic regions had to adapt to a very harsh, cold climate. They learned the skills that were needed to survive in this particular environment. They used blocks of ice, driftwood, and animal skins to build their homes. Because the climate was so cold, they could not farm to produce their food. Instead, they fished and hunted seals, whales, walruses, caribou, and polar bears. They used animal skins for clothing and animal bones for tools. Other Native American tribes lived in the desert areas of the southwestern United States. There weren't many animals for hunting in the desert, so the people relied mostly on farming to provide their food. Corn was an important crop, but they also grew beans, squash, and cotton. Cotton was used to make clothing and blankets. Rainwater and underground springs were used to irrigate their crops. Some tribes in the desert areas raised sheep. Homes were built using materials in the environment such as stones, clay, wood, and straw. Some tribes lived in the side of rocky cliffs. The Plains region of the United States, which is between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains, was another area that was inhabited by Native Americans. This region consisted of huge grasslands, and the people traveled great distances hunting the buffalo that roamed in the area. Every part of a buffalo was used by the people for food, clothing, blankets, and tools. Nothing was wasted. Some Native Americans who lived on the plains had homes called lodges that were made of sod, grass, and animal skins. The sod was actually blocks of earth. Others who lived in the plains region made teepees using wooden poles and buffalo skins. Some Native Americans lived in the coastal wooded areas of the Northwest. There was little farming that could be done in this area, so the people depended on hunting, fishing, and gathering plants for food. They hunted whales, seals, otters, bears, deer, and elk. They fished in the ocean and in rivers. The animals that they hunted were used for food and for making tools. The forest supplied trees that the people could use to build homes and canoes. They also used the wood to make tools. The eastern woodland area was also home to some Native American tribes. There were many natural resources in this area, such as the dense forest that provided trees. The trees could be used for firewood, homes, tools, and building canoes. There were lots of animals to trap and hunt, and the people also fished in the rivers. They grew crops and gathered berries, nuts, and fruits. Their clothing was made from the skins of the deer, bear, and beaver that they hunted. Even though there were different tribes of Native Americans, remember, these people were alike in some ways. Native Americans had a deep respect for the land and its resources. They only used what they needed for survival. In most tribes, women and girls gathered food, cooked, and sewed. In some tribes, the women farmed. Men and boys made tools and weapons. They hunted and farmed. Something that is very interesting is that originally the Native Americans traveled mostly by foot. They did not have horses or guns until Europeans arrived in America. So, what have we learned about Native Americans? Well, we know that Native American tribes were located throughout the different regions of North America. We also know that these people depended on their environment to survive, so they truly did live off the land. We've learned that all Native Americans did not have the same culture or way of life because where they lived determined how they were able to live. With this background information, we can begin an in-depth study of the 6 tribes that are listed in the standards for our unit.